Andrey Smaev is somehow getting even bigger, but he might not last that much longer. The Russian giant supposedly eats up to 10,000 calories every single day, does weighted pull-ups with over 100 kilos strapped to his body, despite outweighing prime Ronnie Coleman by over 20 kilos. He's only 27 years old at the time of making this video, but with his current lifestyle, he might not be able to keep it up much longer. In October last year, I made a video about this guy, the Russian strength athlete Andrey Smaev, and called him the newest world strength phenom, because at only 26 years old he looked like a sentient fridge with abs. He was benching over 300 kilos, doing sets with over 100 reps per exercise, curling more than the Canadian national team, and I thought that surely this was the peak muscularity a human could possibly ever achieve. Well, lo and behold, just a few months later, Andrey is now pushing his body up in weight to a staggering 352 pounds, which is around 160 kilos. Mind you, the guy is about 6'1" or 6'2", depending on the source you choose to read from, whether it's Reddit or Mike Israetel. Somehow, he is still getting bigger week by week, and has gained a full 15 kilos of weight in just 4 to 5 months. And at this rate, I am genuinely scared of how far he's going to push it. Now, there are quite a few rumors going around as to how Smaev has managed to get this much size. One such rumor was that it took 120 IUs of growth hormone every single day, which for reference is like 10 times more than the biggest bodybuilders on earth. And another thing is that he supposedly took so much gear that his body is just growing out of proportion, and that's why he has those insanely large hands and fingers. I mean, how does this guy even post on social media with fingertips wider than half his phone screen? Though I think it has more to do with his genetics on top of everything he's taking, and the rumor about the 120 IUs of growth per day was actually another Russian bodybuilder who did that for 2 weeks as an experiment. And ever since he was younger, Andrey Smaev has had pretty massive hands, though they seem to have gotten even bigger in recent times, reminding me more of the Ukrainian arm wrestler Denis Suplenkov. In fact, Smaev was about to start doing arm wrestling, but many of the best guys in the world said that he wouldn't even be a good fit because he was too nice, and he also had a lot of issues with injuries in his wrists.
Не думаю, что он сможет бороться. У него еще есть один проблема, это то, что он слишком добрый. И когда он борется, он в это время тоже очень добрый, так что...
Still, his current training regimen is just so weird. He tends to do 1 or maybe even 2 heavy compounds and just fills up the rest of his workout with random stuff. Like sometimes it's arm wrestling training, sometimes it's just doing 1,000 reps of sissy squats, and sometimes he goes outside and just presses his car. And I'm pretty sure half of his training is just done outside or in some random park. And apparently Smaev doesn't discriminate against weather because he often goes outside when it's in negative 20 degrees just to get a quick pump. Though I doubt this guy could ever possibly get hypothermia because his heart is probably more effective than any electrical heater at this point. Now, Smaev has been pretty strong ever since he was very young. Like, he benched 200 kilos at age 18, he pressed over 250 kilos at just 20, and while weighing around 120 kilos himself, he was doing pull-ups with over 120 kilos strapped to his body, often using some old kettlebells he got from an old lady. And if that wasn't bad enough, wait until you see some of the insanely massive meals this guy eats. Because it's insanely impressive to me how much food this human being can gobble down in a single sitting. This is supposedly one of his dinners, where he ate a full casserole of chicken soup, which I'm assuming it probably has a whole chicken in it, a full skillet of beef and cooked vegetables, a loaf of bread, another skillet full of pasta and chicken, and then some ketchup. Of course, why wouldn't you consume your 4 full-course family dinners with some ketchup? I guess this is kind of what you have to eat if you want to reach 10,000 calories per day and not have half of it be olive oil or butter. And as a pre-workout snack, he has a large cheese pizza, a regular person's dinner, a bowl of pasta, and what I guess is just some Kool-Aid. I feel incredibly sorry for this man's toilet, though at this point he probably just shits in the bathtub because the toilet is too small. And wouldn't you know it, Andrey Smaev does of course have his own way of winding down after a hard day's work. And I kid you not, this absolute behemoth of a man, who mind you has fingers twice as thick as a regular hot dog, does puzzles to calm down his nerves before going to sleep. Though you would probably expect this to be a grueling activity when you can't pick up any of the pieces, or maybe the puzzle just solves itself out of fear of being crushed. I feel like he's just become a real-life JoJo character at this point, because how else could you explain that a giant man who looks twice his age, lifting world record numbers in the gym, can do a human flag, eats like a family of 8, and his favorite hobby is petting his undersized dog and doing puzzles? And the worst thing is that he somehow built a physique so massive that I genuinely think that Andrey Smaev has more muscle than any living person on this planet. And of course he also goes to church, but you'll never see him actually be inside of the church because he's too big to fit through the freaking door. Recently, Smaev also did a collaboration with Larald Williams where he showed off his insane pre-workout stack, which is just the caffeine version of that clip of Ronnie Coleman making his 100-gram protein shake. And his workout was literally just doing push-ups with people on his back. And it's honestly pretty humbling that arguably the most muscly man on the planet right now is just doing push-ups in some random playground. The guy even offered Larry Wheels some of his friends so he could use them to have different weights when training. The guy is just really interesting because Smaev doesn't compete in anything, and as far as I know, he only earns money from working in a factory combined with some of his postings on social media. Like, he doesn't seem to have any specific ambition either, he just trains to be as big as humanly possible, as strong as possible, and he's not even really capitalizing on it, so I guess he's just doing it for the love of the game. But if you guys know anything about cardiovascular health, you'll know that it doesn't really matter if you're 360 pounds of fat or muscle, it still puts a lot of pressure on your heart, lungs, and arguably, if you have more muscle, you'll have even higher demands for oxygen, and your heart will have to pump out even more blood. And because of the insane amount of PEDs this guy takes, Smaev's heart might be heavily enlarged as a byproduct, which does put you at a higher risk of a heart attack, as your heart muscles might even become too thick to properly contract. There is definitely some risk in the game for this guy. Of course, Andrey Smaev is very open about his PED use, but I do wonder how his physical health really is, because at the end of the day, it's hard to not respect this guy's dedication. To eat like this, to train like this, and to live like this for years just to be like the biggest guy in some random Russian park is honestly insane. But it's also a reminder that just because something is possible doesn't mean it's remotely healthy or good for the average gym goer. Though I would argue you can be impressed by the freaks instead of trying to emulate them or become one. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments, if you think Andrey Smaev is the most muscular guy on the planet right now, or if there's somebody else that I need to make a video on in the future. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.